And we're off. Hi, everyone. Welcome. Episode 525 of the All Dolphin podcast on this Friday, July 26th, the last Dolphin training camp practice closed to the public. Whole new ball game begins Saturday. And to wrap up what was a comparatively ho-hum Friday compared to the first 2 days of training camp, I'm joined once again by Chris Perkins of the South Florida Sun Sentinel. I'm still jet lagged and half asleep, so please forgive me if I'm mumbling more than usual today. Anyway, hi Perk, how are you?
I'm good, man. I'm good. I saw some decent things out there. Quinn Ewers had a good day, but yeah, he's the darling of camp for the next however many hours, 18 hours or whatever, until we get to Saturday's practice.
Yeah, well, there's no roster moves to talk about today. No major injury news other than it's not. We don't know if it's major yet. We don't know the status, but the attendance report was the same as it was on Thursday. Obviously, factoring in the newcomers, Cornell Armstrong, who was there at practice for the first time, the offensive lineman, as a first name escapes me right now. I apologize, but there was one more addition to the injury list. Was rookie safety Dante Trader Jr., the fifth-round pick from Maryland, was not out there. Same as Aaron Brewer, who continues to deal with what Mike McDaniel told us was a lower extremity injury. Says he'll be back sooner than later. Certainly good news. And the reason he was not placed on PUP at the start of camp, like Darren Waller and like Liam Eichenberg, is that the Dolphins wanted him to be able to work on some snapping with Tua Tagovailoa. Also, he's allowed to do walkthroughs when this particular situation happens. And then the first guy you mentioned, Quinn Ewers. I know you love this day. I thought he was good. He had probably the most impressive pass of the day, which was a nice touch throw over the middle to D. Eskridge, who had a couple of catches himself. He was a factor. I don't know if how can I say this without like sounding critical, because this is apparently one of the criticisms. Nothing excites me or whatever. Quinn Ewers had a very good day. It wasn't like stop the presses, let's call contact the NFL committees. He might be your rookie of the year, but he performed well. Actually, I thought all three quarterbacks were solid today.
Yeah, the thing that I like about Quinn Ewers and that I thought that I saw today was he can make some good throws. He had a nice throw to Theo Weiss Jr. I think he had another one to is it Andrew Armstrong?
Yes.
Yes. So he made some nice plays, but I think with Quinn, to me, I don't see him making the same mistake twice. I see him learning from what he does, and you don't see the coaches going over to him and pointing and correcting him on stuff. There's more congratulations. There's more pats on the back. And when the players aren't in pads, these are the things that I look for from linemen in drills, from defensive backs. Are the coaches making them do the drill over again? Are the coaches, scolding them, or are they gently correcting them, coaching them, offering them encouragement? And I think that that's kind of the more important thing to look at when players are not in pads. And really, it's not just the throws that I saw from Quinn Ewers. It's the reaction from the coaches afterwards. Congratulations, patting them on the back, not doing a lot of, hey, pointing and looking like they're correcting him. They're not going over footwork or things like that. And so, you don't see a lot of that with Quinn. You saw definitely more of that in OTAs and minicamp when stuff is really, really, really new to him. And look, it's going to be new to him all year. He's a rookie. He's a 7th-round pick. But I thought that I saw progress in Quinn Ewers along with results. And so that was one of the things I was encouraged with. Let me put this out there just for the record. As you said, Poop, it's just one day. He's still the number 3 quarterback behind Tua, behind Zach Wilson. I would be absolutely shocked if he got the number 2 job over Zach Wilson. Zach Wilson is Mike McDaniel and Chris Greer's hand-picked choice for number 2. But we've seen the Dolphins go to the number 3 quarterback a couple of times in the Mike McDaniel era. And so I'm not saying that Quinn can get them to 500. I'm not overreacting. I'm just pointing out for one day, the 7th round, number 3 quarterback showed some signs of improvement and consistency, and it's something to be encouraged about.
Yeah, and I would say he is far ahead in terms of how he looks compared to what we saw in the offseason program. Because from my viewpoint, and I preface it all the time by saying, and it's extraordinarily early, but this is where we have to gauge it on right now because this is all they've done. During the offseason program, I left that with like, yeesh. I mean, what's there with this dude as far as a prospect? After 3 practices of training camp, it's still early. We should not do a premature evaluation, but I feel a lot better about his prospects now than I did during camp. And this is where I'm going to stop on the practice stuff for a second because I forgot about the timing of our podcast. I was thinking in terms of Thursday and Friday. We did Thursday, and there's stuff that happened after we did our episode on Thursday that we need to address. One of which interested me very much is that when the Dolphins signed Cornell Armstrong, cornerback from Southern Miss, former Dolphin 6th-round pick, who was re-signed in the aftermath of the Artie Burns injury. He was signed after the Dolphins had a tryout that included 4 cornerbacks. It wasn't just Cornell Armstrong. It was Jordan Taylor, who was a free agent from James Madison. It was Duke Shelley. Again, the voice is going through puberty again. It was Duke Shelley, who was like a 6-year veteran who started, I think, maybe 11 career games. And then here was the name that was very interesting to me. Former first-round pick whose career has not panned out, actually 9th overall pick in 2020. That's TJ Henderson. And along with that, they also worked out 2 offensive linemen, who they signed, and Spencer Brown, not the one from the Buffalo Bills. Spencer Brown is a rookie free agent from the University of Oklahoma. And this is gonna segue into a conversation here. And I see you wrote about this, and I apologize, I was napping. I haven't read it yet. I will read it.
Yep.
The fact that the Dolphins signed Cornell Armstrong as a cornerback once they had a cornerback opening with Artie Burns going on IR, that kind of sort of tells you that the Dolphins thinking right now of the cornerback room, which Mike McDaniel confirmed Friday morning before practice, that basically there may come a point where they look outside for a higher profile cornerback, but right now it's about working with and developing the guys they have. And I'm not sure that's sitting well with you. Is it, Perk?
Well, listen, I wrote about the cornerback situation today. I asked Mike McDaniel about the cornerback situation. I don't like the cornerback situation. Well, let me rephrase. I'm uncomfortable with the cornerback situation.
Are you queasy?
What's that?
Are you queasy?
Joe Philbin, I am queasy. That is a good way to describe it. Queasy. Look, Kader Kohou they've got 10 cornerbacks in camp. 7 of them, including Kader, are undrafted. You've got 2nd-round pick Cam Smith, 4th-round pick Kendall Sheffield, 5th-round pick Jason Marshall Jr. Jason Marshall Jr. is a rookie this year, came out of Florida. Kendall Sheffield has started 20 career games, but none since 2020. Kader is solid, 38 starts, but he's your slot nickel guy. You might have to play him on the boundary. And, my concern here really is that you don't have anybody that seems like they're on the rise. Everybody is just they've just kind of been there since OTA, since mini camp, and through 3 days. I would say that Storm Duck is the one that I'm most encouraged about, aside from Kader Kohou. He's a clear number 2 to me. Kendall Sheffield would be number 3. Right now, those are my 3 starters.
Yeah. After
that, we'll see what happens. We'll see if Cam Smith can make a move. We'll see if Ethan Bonner can make a move. We'll see if BJ Adams, some of these other guys can make moves. We've seen some of these guys flash. Isaiah Johnson is another guy that we both like because of his length, but I've got to see more plays, more consistency out of Isaiah Johnson and all of these guys. Right now, I see this secondary getting smoked by most starting receivers. We saw in OTAs and minicamp, Jalen. Go ahead.
No, I was going to make the point though, because Jalen Waddle and this came up on social media, so I'm going to address it right here. Because Jalen Waddle, yes, is making a lot of catches. First of all, Jalen Waddle is a very good wide receiver.
Right.
Jalen Waddle goes very fast.
Yep.
But there's something the catches he's making kind of looks like they're playing zone coverage, and he's finding spots in the open spots in the zone. So it's not like, and this is where we don't necessarily have. Sometimes it's very obvious whose player. Who's DB
Yes.
is, sometimes it's not. And again, if Jalen Waddle's running across the field and finds an open spot in the zone and gets wide open with his speed, I don't think it's necessarily at that point an indictment on any of the defensive backs. Because I haven't seen many times where it's clear there's a defensive back, a cornerback who got beat. There was one instance today, there was a completion to, I think it was, that might have been the play to Theo Ewers Jr. you're talking about, where Cam Smith was the one closest to him, and immediately after the completion, you saw Cam have a negative reaction on the field. So it would be almost safe to assume that he had the responsibility there, and he got beat. But I don't know that there have been many instances where, that guy got smoked or that guy got smoked. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you're correct, and I would expound on that by saying I take into account 1-on-1, which maybe that's not fair. 7-on-7, maybe that's not fair, and 11-on-11. But when you combine it all, Waddle has had his way with these guys. I know a lot of them are inexperienced, so I'm not expecting them to D them up like they're Jalen Ramsey. I just haven't seen progress. I talked about Quinn Ewers. I don't see as much progress out of these cornerbacks as I've seen from Quinn Ewers. So, and Waddle is a number 2. They didn't really see Tyreek in the right. And yeah, so you're gonna see some wide receivers this year, Deebo Samuel and Jamar Chase and T. Higgins and Terry McLaurin. You're gonna have to. Cater can't defend all these guys. You're going to have your second cornerback be able to defend some of these guys. You're going to see some outstanding quarterbacks, right? Jaden Daniels, Josh Allen twice, Joe Burrow. It's going to be tough for these guys. The standard is high. They've got to make some progress quickly. I asked Mike McDaniel today, and I thought this was an interesting answer. Would you put somebody out there for game 1 kind of thinking he'll grow into the role, and maybe by game 4, by game 6, by game 8, he's a legit starting cornerback? And Mike McDaniel looked at me like I was crazy. He was like, can I stand up in front of the team and say we're developing this guy? That no, you've got to be ready to roll. If that's your standard, you're going to have to go off this roster. I don't know that anybody aside from Cater and maybe Storm Duck will be ready on September 7th to go up to Indy and be a starting NFL cornerback. And I did point out in my column that I defend Chris Greer in being able to find cornerbacks. I think that's one of his superpowers. Maybe it's his only superpower. I know that Noah Igbenogany is on that list. I know Cam Smith is on that list. And I say find, not draft. He's gotten Xavier Howard, Jalen Ramsey, Byron Jones, Cater Kohu, Kendall Fuller, Nick Needham. He's been able to find guys. He's going to have to get on the horn and find somebody in a couple of weeks. That's what I think. I just don't see anybody, Cater, Storm Duck, and then it kind of falls off. There's Sheffield and the rest of the guys. So I'm not saying that I'm not going to go out like some of the national guys and say this is the worst quarterback room in the NFL, but they need help. They need help. They need to grow. I'll give them some time to grow. We'll see what they do in joint practices, but you might have to increase your offer to Rasul Douglas if you can.
Is Rasul Douglas that much of an upgrade over what they have right now? Okay.
Well, I think that Rasul Douglas is a legit corner. He's better than Storm Duck or Kendall Sheffield.
Wasn't last year.
You don't think he was better than Storm Duck last year?
He was not good last year, and I'm going to.
He was not good. Yeah.
I think Storm Duck has looked good so far. Had a really good day today, and I entered training camp thinking like this cornerback group was like, And I'm sorry, I don't think it's time that the panic button should not yet be pushed. Also, make room for the possibility because the Dolphins, when they go nickel, that your fifth guy may be a safety or
Yep.
maybe a combo guy. There's one guy who hasn't practiced yet who remains on NFI, who's got some good coverage skills. Of course, he's going to have to stay healthy, and that's going to be the question mark. And that's Ife Melifonwu, free agent acquisition with the Detroit Lions. He could wind up in the slot. He could even wind up. He's got cornerback experience too. That's somebody you could use in a different type of way. Cater, by the way, we should mention was the one wearing the orange jersey because he was really good in practice on Thursday. So I don't know that it's, to me right now. I don't think it's the crisis that folks might think it is. I think maybe right now, if I'm going to be honest with you, right now I'd be more concerned with the offensive line. And part of it is Aaron Brewer has not practiced.
Yep.
I'm assuming he's going to be fine for the start of the regular season, no problem. It would help if the offensive line could work together. James Daniels and 11 on 11 today. I wasn't necessarily paying attention totally. My bad at the beginning of those reps.
Yep.
But I did, let's say, start fairly early. Noticed he wasn't getting any 11 on 11 reps. I don't know what his status is. That's the guy coming off an Achilles injury. That's a little bit troubling. And Austin Jackson is fine if he's healthy. Assuming Patrick Paul still has to prove himself. I don't know exactly how many answers we're going to find yet in training camp, particularly when there are no pads on. And Jovison Navainaya, by all indications, is progressing fine. It's not because his teammates and Mike McDaniel singing his praises that I say that, but because that's exactly what they're going to say. I mean, nobody's going to say, well, yeah, he's struggling out there. I mean, I hope he turns it around, but right now it's really bad. No, it's going to be sort of, wow, he looks good and all that. So
I like that comparison. That because I it's a five-man secondary, five-man offensive line, so it's almost an apples to apples in that sense. Maybe you've got Fuji apples and I've got Granny Smith apples, but it's kind of an apple. Let me go. But if I stack five-man units, I trust that offensive line much more because I've seen Aaron Brewer play, I've seen James Daniels play, I've seen Austin Jackson play. In the secondary, I've seen Cater and I've seen Minka. If he doesn't have a whole lot of extended starting experience, Ashton Davis doesn't have a whole lot of extended starting experience, Kendall Sheffield, Storm Duck. And so is that correct? Okay.
Yeah, no, but if you're gonna play that game, then I can tell you Patrick Paul doesn't have a whole lot of starting experience.
Yes, I didn't name him. Yep.
Jonas Abayina sure as hell doesn't have a whole lot of starting experience. So you
didn't name him.
Well, but you got three guys out of five, and you got one who's coming off an Achilles tear, and you have one who hasn't practiced yet. So
I would still take I still have more faith in the five-man offensive line than the five-man secondary, including the slot nickel cornerback. I do. Offensive line has more health problems. You're right that Jonah and Patrick Paul are unproven, but Kendall Sheffield and Storm Duck are unproven. But we'll see. I just think that the secondary has much more to show me than the offensive line. But the offensive line is not out of danger. They're not out of the woods by any stretch.
That's fair. But my whole point, going back to my original point, is I think to me the secondary so far, the cornerbacks in particular, have not alarmed me yet.
They've alarmed me.
Well, you're an alarmist.
Nice. You're a linguist.
Thank you. Not only that, I know words.
This is bad. I know.
Man, we are getting off the rails.
Yeah, we are.
Pretty quickly. Okay. What else happened on Thursday night? We had to talk about it. We have to mention it. Christian Wilkins. Woof. Boom. If you're not familiar with the report, I would imagine if you're watching this podcast, you are. But just in case, the Las Vegas Raiders indicated that they will be terminating the contract of Christian Wilkins. Not only that, they are withholding guaranteed money because of a disagreement over how he has gone about trying to recover from his Jones fracture in his left foot, which has turned out to be a very problematic injury. And according to Ian Rappaport of NFL Network, the issue basically is the Raiders wanted him to have a second surgery, to which Christian said, "No, I'm good." And that has led to this. As one would expect, when somebody wants to take away like 35 million of your scheduled guarantee, a grievance has been filed with the NFLPA or through the NFLPA for Wilkins. And the bottom line is, at some point, I'm going to guess either they're going to come to a settlement or there will be lawyers, period. So that, of course, brings up the question now is, should the Dolphins consider bringing back Christian Wilkins? We examined the pros and cons on Miami Dolphins and SI.com, SunSentinel.com. Chris Perkins, what's your take? Would you entertain the idea?
Well, I will say this. That's the only story that I didn't get around to reading on your site today. I was in a crunch for time. So unfortunately, I didn't read it. I will when we're done. I would kick the tires. And here's the thing to me is that when is Christian going to be able to play? Would it be this season? It sounds like a serious surgery for the Jones fracture. And you would think he's going to have it in August or, I would think there's months. I'm just talking here. I would guess it's probably a few weeks of recovery after that. And then you've got to play yourself into shape. So let's just say he misses half the season. That would be worth it. I think that would be worth it as far as where this franchise is. You would think that Christian Wilkins wouldn't demand much money. Haven't they paid him more than $50 million?
I believe so.
They paid him a good amount. I don't think Christian Wilkins would be demanding $20 million out of the Dolphins because he knows they don't have it, number one, and he knows that he's coming off of this injury, number two. So I would think he would be, whoever signs him, he's not going to be willing to take, he's not going to demand huge money. Christian Wilkins is an effective defensive player. You need, as the Dolphins, effective defensive players. His good friend Zach Sealer is on the team. He's played here before. He knows the coaches. He knows the teammates. He knows the area. I think it would be an upside acquisition. So I would kick the tires and see if it works, see what his attitude is like, things like that. I think that would be very important. Are there any ill feelings or anything like that from the way negotiations went? What's his attitude now? Is he going to come here? And I don't know how he was in Las Vegas overall. The funny thing about this Vegas thing is it seems more personal than business. I don't know that you can take guaranteed money from this man because he doesn't want to, he's not acting the way you want him to act. You can definitely release him. I just don't know if that's legal grounds. I don't know if that's a contract violation, like if you get arrested for, selling cocaine or something like that. I don't know that it's in the same contract if you violate your contract in that same way. So yes, I would do my due diligence at the very least. Yes.
Yeah, for me, and it was my deputy editor Dante Colonelli who wrote the story and presented all sides very, very well. To me, right off the bat is barring surgery, I don't think he plays this year, and maybe in the surgery knocks him out for the year too.
Right.
The way it sounds. So that to me, if I were to predict right now, based on what I know about his injury and his recovery, I'm not even sure he's playing in 2025. I also don't know exactly what grounds in the CBA in the written contract would allow a team to go after somebody's guaranteed money, as you mentioned. And this is where the NFLPA is going to push back. Is there something in there that says you have to follow the treatment recommended by the team doctors? And if that's the case, and then the Christian decides, no, I'm going to do it on my own terms, is that grounds to be able to avoid the guarantees? I'm not sure, and this is where maybe it's not clear. I can't imagine the Raiders would just decide to do this without thinking that they can can get away with it. And just like there's no way in hell that Christian to his agent is going to say, okay, good, you can have our guaranteed money coming back. And if he's able to play and the Dolphins can get him on the cheap, from a talent standpoint, obviously you bring him in. However, was one issue, were there any bridges burned, or at the very least, lit even a little bit? Number one. Number two, is there a concern it could be a progress blocker in terms of Kenneth Grant? So those are factors that have to come into play. But it's certainly, I mean, wow, what a wild story, this idea of going after somebody's major guarantee like that, and a year after you sign somebody to a massive contract. And by the way, if anybody, this is not a validation in any way, shape, or form for the Dolphins having decided to let him go. He sustained a fluke injury. The Dolphins' decision, you have to look at it purely in terms of where he was at the time, and it basically comes down to once you were not able to sign him to a new contract. To me, I don't know how you could justify giving him the amount of money that he got from the Raiders. So from that standpoint, and it just turned out badly for the Raiders and for Wilkins that he sustained a fluky injury there.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. And look, I did raise the question on social media: should you give Chris Greer some credit for dodging a bullet? But you are 100% right. I raised the question, but no, he didn't. This is just the way it worked out.
No, it's completely fluky. Okay, other practice thoughts. Let's get back to this. I think that's all there was last night. I mean, the whole thing kept coming in. Nick Westbrook-Akine was a factor for the first time. Had a nice reception from toward down the left sideline. Had another catch. I don't remember, from one of the backups. Not quite sure who it was. Willie Gay Jr. had a nice pass breakup when he zipped in front of you. Recognized the pass that was going to Tanner Conner from Zach Wilson. Cut in front of him. That was a nice play. This guy continues to shine. Yeah. KJ Britt has not been very noticeable, but KJ Britt's forte is more physicality, which to me will come into play a lot more when the pads come out than in this particular setup. Gay's got better movement as far as that is concerned. Derek McClendon, forgot to mention him. Mm-hmm. Florida State to Colorado defensive end / edge defender, had a really nice day. Had a would-be sack and maybe a fumble recovery because Ollie Gordon, fumbled at the end of a running play. I could have sworn I saw Zeke Biggers fall on the ball first, but then it was Derek McClendon who came out of I don't want to say the pile, but came off the ground with the ball in his hands. That was worth noting. Again, a lot of flags. There were 4 officials on the field today as opposed to 2 the first 2 practices. Again, a lot of flags, a lot of illegal formation or false starts. And let me see if anything else.
Yeah, let me expand on a couple of things. NWI, his plays, I thought, were the significance. They were from the 30-yard line. I'll just say open field. They weren't red zone. They weren't short yardage situation. It wasn't goal line. He's the big body guy, and these weren't, go up and get it and fight for it. This was just, you're a primary, target here. I thought that was encouraging. He didn't show us a whole lot in OTAs and minicamp. So I thought this was encouraging. We're not going to make too much of it, but it was encouraging. Here's a question that I will ask you. We've talked about in the press room, we haven't seen them going deep very much. And I don't know, sometimes teams work on things. And so maybe for the first few practices, they haven't wanted to do this. Do you think they're working on things specifically, or is this the influence of Bobby Slowick, the senior pass game coordinator, the first year senior pass game coordinator? I don't know the answer to that.
No, I don't know either. It's too early to tell. But it's interesting. Like, I remember past training camps where the Dolphins made it a point to chuck it once or twice every practice.
Yep, correct.
And the one deep pass I remember was the one I mentioned yesterday, into double coverage to Malik Washington down the right sideline. But there hasn't been anything deep outside of that at all. But the passing game, for the most part, has been efficient when it's not been bothered by the pressure where the timing is thrown off, and then Tua has to hold onto the ball, for example, him or Zach Wilson or whatever, and then they start scrambling and they try to make something happen. Long after the play, chances are, would be concluded regularly.
You mentioned the inside linebackers and Willie Gay. Mike McDaniel mentioned Jordan Brooks earlier today. I think he's having a good camp, but I think those inside backers are doing well. I'm not saying that any of them are going to be Pro Bowlers, but again, with Jordan Brooks, Terrell Dodson, Willie Gay Jr., and KJ Britt, you've got a deep, talented, veteran, inside linebacker crew that I think can really help that front seven. I'm excited about the front seven. And speaking of the front seven, the edge rushers are doing very well. And, I'm not going to get on the offensive tackles a whole lot. I think Patrick Paul is showing some decent stuff. Austin Jackson is showing some decent stuff, but I'm seeing Jalen Phillips and Chop Robinson and Bradley Chubb all over the quarterbacks, not just Tua, but Zach Wilson, Quinn Ewers. So that speaks very well for the defensive front seven. That speaks very well for the edge rushers and what we think that we will see from them if Phillips and Chubb stay healthy. And Ryan Hayes got my stock down today. But as I said, this is probably low-hanging fruit because he is going up against Chubb and Phillips and Chop Robinson, and he seemed to be like knocked off balance a lot, even if he didn't allow it. But you're going to face that quality of pass rusher if you're pressed into action. So I'm concerned about the backup offensive line, and at some point somebody has got to start making some kind of plays. But I'm seeing these quarterbacks under a lot of pressure from the edge rushers. Certainly the tight ends are a part of it. I haven't looked to see if they're doing loops and stunts and twists but I'm seeing the edge rushers. I don't think they are either. I think they're going up against tight ends and offensive tackles. But I'm seeing the edge rushers struggling. Again, you've got some quality pass rushers, but I'm watching mostly the depth in this offensive line. I think Austin Jackson and Patrick Paul will be good if they stay healthy. Good enough.
Yeah, a couple of other guys I want to mention. Tanner Connor had a productive day, even though there was one play where he was throwing the ball over the middle, and I think it was B.J. Adams, as I wrote, had really, really good coverage and kept it. As Tanner Connor was looking to try to make the catch, Adams got his hand in there and kept tugging at it until he pulled it out, which was a very good play. Farrell Brown had one play that stood out to me where he just classic textbook steel block of Chop on a running play that went behind him, which was really good. It was John Saunders Jr., the rookie safety, who made that play against Tanner Connor. Post-practice, very quickly, the little media sessions today was Jalen Phillips who spoke, Kenneth Grant, Jonas Savaiinaya, Devon Achane, Taj Washington, and Kendall Sheffield. And the things that I want to mention, I want to mention it because I want to bring up this quote because it's the quote, probably the quote of the last 10 years regarding the Dolphins. And basically I'm going to try to find it very quickly. Here we go. Jonas Savaiinaya kind of acknowledged that he's playing left guard right now, and somebody asked him about the switch from right guard to left guard, and I don't even remember his answer. It was like, is an adjustment and all that. And this brings to mind the fabulous quote from Josh Sitton, veteran guard in 2018, longtime Packers Bears guard who signed with the Dolphins, who was asked the same question because he was switching sides. And here was his quote: I could compare it with trying to wipe your ass with your opposite hand. That might be a little too much for you all, but it's different when you're not used to position switching. The second. I think it was Cam Wolf who asked.
It was.
Another question. The second he asked a question, that quote popped into my head. I'm like, come on, Jonah, do it. You can do it.
Right. That Josh Sitton really puts into perspective the difficulties that are involved. I love that quote. It is right. It's not as easy as you might think. Yeah.
Absolutely. And then the other thing that stood out to me in terms of the media session was Jalen Phillips. And this is a question I was going to ask your colleague, David Fronis of the South Florida Sun Sentinel, beat me to it. It was basically how much his contract situation is on his mind, considering he's playing on the 5th-year option following a good start to his NFL career, but then the back-to-back season-ending injuries with the Achilles in 2023 and the torn ACL in 2024. As my Wi-Fi here starts freezing a little bit, and now I'm back, not freezing anymore, which is good. And he basically kind of said that he can't be worried about it, while at the same time acknowledging that this is a huge year for him in terms of setting himself up financially, because obviously he would like very much a long-term contract. And right now, Dolphins haven't given it to him, and you can't blame him for that, because you need to see if the guy can hold up.
Yep. Yeah, I think the Dolphins are obviously taking the right approach here. The guy's coming off of back-to-back season-ending injuries. Jalen Phillips, he always gives us good stuff. He's very thoughtful. He's a sharp, wise. He's a guy who's got some depth to him, and so I love it when we talk to Jalen Phillips, or when he's on the podium. He's always going to give us some good stuff, some meaningful stuff, and he did again today. By the way, Jonas Savai Naya. I know this is bad. A flag on me. Savai Naya. I thought it was interesting. He told us that he had jammed with Tua. He had been gone over to Tua's house, and he plays the piano, and he said, Tua's best at the guitar and the ukulele, and Tua's got a great voice. So how about that? How about that, man?
Yeah, and Tua plays the bass also. And then Joe Shad kind of told him, you need to play Somewhere Over the Rainbow, and guys put it on social media so we get the clicks.
Right. Just Savai and he didn't know what to say about that.
I know, he was like, no. And then the last thing here before we close this out, another interesting comment from Jalen Phillips, who said that coming back from a torn ACL was not easier than coming back from an Achilles injury. It was much easier. And basically the reason was that with the Achilles, you're restricted in your movement basically for 4 months, what he said, whereas with the ACL, you can start walking pretty quickly after the surgery. So, okay, that's going to wrap it up. As we move ahead, by the way, I forgot to say this at the top of the show, because unfortunately that's another flag on me. Please like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Check out Chris Perkins' fine work at sunsentinel.com. Check out my written content at MiamiDolphinsNSI.com, that of my staff, where the content, and a lot of it is always free. Saturday is the first practice open to the public, and the Dolphins are adding a new twist this year, which actually I think is pretty cool. Is they're going to select a fan of the day. Basically the way this works is for those attending practice, and to attend practice, which is free, you just have to go to MiamiDolphins.com/training camp and register to get tickets. They have an activation road at the stadium. You submit nominations to be the fan of the day. They're going to announce the winner toward the end of practice. The winner has to be still be there, and that person will be given an orange jersey signed by the player wearing the actual orange jersey that day, based on his performance previous practice. That's a cool little twist. The Dolphins do a lot of other things for the fans who come out to practice, but Saturday's open practice number one. And as always, Perk and I will be back to recap it all for those not lucky enough to be out there. So that again, for the third time, that's gonna do it. I'm getting punchy, folks. Please bear with me. That's gonna do it. Thanks for watching and putting up with this nonsense, and have a good one.